Friday. I think. Yeah, it's Friday. It's Blair and Barker for Friday, the final Friday of the 2024 regular season. The Jays opening a 3-game series against the Miami Marlins tonight at the Rogers Center at 7:07. And then that's it. Sunday afternoon, final game of the regular season for the Blue Jays. We will be joined by Jon Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, later on in the show. And we'll get John's take. We'll give John a chance to put a bow in the season. And he had some, well, we taped it a little early. I'm going to give that away. Some interesting comments. And we look forward to playing that for you. Jon Morosi will join us in a few minutes. 5 o'clock, we're going to be joined by Mike Mordecai. How to describe Mike Mordecai's career? Well, he was the World Series champion with the Braves. He was a very useful bench player for those great Braves teams. He was with the Blue Jays organization as a minor league instructor. He was on the coaching staff. But he was also an infielder with the Miami Marlins, then Florida Marlins. And before that, the Montreal Expos. And you're saying, okay, that's nice. That's a great career. Why are we having him on? Well, on September 29th, the Montreal Expos played their final home game ever at Olympic Stadium. It was against the Marlins. And as we get close to the 20th anniversary of that game, I thought it would be interesting to talk to the guy who caught the final out of the game. The pop-up from Termel Sledge. It was Mike Mordecai who'd come into the game to play third base. And I want to know where the ball is.
Ooh.
I may have even asked him this before because I got to talk to Mike a couple of times and he was with the Blue Jays. But he played with the Expos from 98 to 2002. He was with the Marlins in 2004. And as I said, recorded the final out at the stadium. The final game in the history of the Expos was played 4 days later, October 3rd, get it right, Jeff, at Shea Stadium against the New York Mets. So we're at that time, and I thought watching, Kevin, what happened in Oakland yesterday with the final game at home for the A's, it just kind of all tied together well. So Mike Mordecai will join us. And it is Friday. We will go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. Your final chance, I guess, to ask questions of Kevin and myself. Maybe come up with some suggestions for the team next year.
Not
look
blow
back
it
in
up
this year.
No blow it up questions. No erasing, start over.
Ask whatever you want.
They're not doing that. So don't waste your breath.
And a reminder that starting next week, starting Tuesday, we will be on from 3 to 4 Eastern on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet throughout the postseason. Monday, we will be on at our regular time, 4 to 6 Eastern on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. And then if there's anything particularly newsy out of the postseason media availabilities, Barker's, especially with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, we will cover that. And Sportsnet 590 The Fan will be, of course, all over it. And Sportsnet.ca will be all over it as well. So that's kind of the business end of the operation wrapped up. We do have some playoff spots to be decided in Major League Baseball. The New York Yankees clinched the East last night. And it was kind of funny. I don't know if any of you saw it in social media, but there was a great shot. Of course, the Yankees went out in the field to celebrate after the game. And there was the captain, Aaron Judge, after the game, walking around the outfield, picking up beer cans and champagne bottles and helping the grounds crew, which I thought was kind of neat. I mean, you're the captain of the Yankees. You want to keep it classy. But the Yankees clinched the AL East. They clinch it with a division record of 26-26. So think about that for a minute. The top team in the AL East finished with a record of 500 in the division. Not 600, not 550, 600. That is really rare. Generally, in this division, to win the East, you got to play over 500 to win the division. I don't know what it says about the division other than it kind of just adds a little more fuel to our fire that perhaps the Toronto Blue Jays, maybe they were in it a little longer than they thought they were in it. Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm probably simplifying it.
Yeah, look, I mean, just again, muscle against muscle. Do you really believe that? Like,
No, of course not.
I understand about the bullpens, and we have conversations about people who cover the Braves, and how do they overcome things that happen to them throughout the season, and it's because the way the bullpen stepped up and won the games they were supposed to win, and kept a minute to allow certain guys in the lineup to do certain things, and they got one dude in the rotation who's been doing tremendous things. Like, yeah, it's sometimes it is an individual sport, and one part of the game for a team can get you where you ultimately want to go. So yeah, look, it's just it's a tough take when you're a game under 500 and one of your best arms goes down, and you basically did nothing after that, and it was June.
Just to put that in context, again, the Yankees finished 26-26 against the AL East this season. This is from Katie Sharp, who does a terrific job with Yankee stats. They are just the second AL East team to win the division with a 500 or worse division record. That excludes shortened seasons, of course. The other was the 1972 Detroit Tigers.
Probably the last time it happens for a while, too.
Could be the last time it happens for a while, too. Our next guest got to see the New York Yankees clinch last night, and in point of fact, interviewed the captain, Aaron Judge, following the game. He is Jon Morosi of the MLB Network. There he is. Hello, Mr. Morosi.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is quite a time of year. I've already made my journey back here to the great state of Michigan, and rather improbably, I may witness the Tigers clinch a playoff spot sometime this weekend, which none of us thought was going to be the case 3 weeks ago, much less 3 months ago. So it's quite a time in baseball.
Yeah, and that's a perfect jumping off. We'll talk about the Yankees in a minute, but a perfect jumping off point. Look, you've covered the Tigers. You're certainly familiar with their history. Where does this rate in sort of? The Tigers make the postseason. Let's just say they're going to make the postseason. Where does that rate, John, in terms of stuff to happen to the Tigers?
The most stunningly great season I have witnessed in my 42 years on this earth, most of which have been living in Michigan. Mm-hmm. In terms of a baseball season, as our friend John Lowe told me, Jeff, right when I was starting to cover baseball, he said, John, there are few things in sports that are better than the unexpectedly really good team. And that's what they've got right now. It's an unexpectedly really good team. We'll find out if it's an elite team, one that can win a series in October against a ball club like Houston or Cleveland or New York, for example, Baltimore maybe. We'll find that out in time, but the turnaround from what Fangraphs told us was a less than 1% chance about a month ago.
Yep.
Now having a magic number of 1 entering the final weekend, it is objectively unfathomable. This is a baseball miracle. And you're watching this team play games, win games, come back. It's possible for a variety of reasons. I think the first of them is that they've got the best pitcher in baseball in Tarek Skubal. He is sort of the sun around which the rest of this miraculous solar system is now revolving.
And that's I wanted to follow up with that. Look, when the Toronto Raptors won their championship, Masai Ujiri tried to trade Kyle Lowry to the New York Knicks, and Knicks ownership stepped in and said, no, we don't want that deal. Does Scott Harris get Executive of the Year for not trading Tarek Skubal? Because a lot of us, I went back and looked at some of the stuff that was written in March 1st in spring training, and a lot of people were saying, at some point look what the Tigers could get for Tarek Skubal. That's like maybe he'll end up in a contender, and he did end up in a contender, just probably not the contender we all thought he'd end up on. Like, to me, that is deals not made sometimes are more important than the deals that are made, John.
Well, it's an excellent point, Jeff. And one of the more remarkable storylines here is that almost by definition at this moment in time, the Tigers are either going to meet in the first round the Astros, so you'd have A.J. Hinch against his former team, or they'd meet the Orioles, who were the team to which most of us thought had the best chance of acquiring Skubal at the deadline. And by point of fact, Scott Harris, after the deadline, confirmed on MLB Network Radio that, yes, he listened. He listened. No deal ever got close, but he was listening. So, and we know that they were open for business because they traded Flaherty and Chafin and Canna and Carson Kelly. They traded 4 or 5 major league players. And I think the piece of this that, and this is not, it's not poking fun, it's not taking a cheap shot here, but one of the players they got in the Flaherty deal was a young shortstop named Trey Sweeney. Mm-hmm. And that was right around the time that Javier Baez went on the IL for basically the rest of the year. He had tried to play through an injury. He had played not well all season long. That's well documented. And I do think that putting a rookie in at shortstop, Trey Sweeney, who's about the same age and a similar skill set in terms of working in at bat as a lot of these other young players like Colt Keith and Jace Young and Torkelson once he came back, and Parker Meadows in center field. There's a certain thing, and Kevin, you've lived this at different times in your career. The enthusiasm of youth, when it's the right kind of youth, can be magic in baseball. The Brewers have a little bit of that going right now with Jackson Churio and Frelick and Bryce Terang and Joey Ortiz. There is a certain element that, darn it, it's like these kids, Kevin, they don't know yet they're not supposed to win. No one's told them that yet. And so they're just coming every day with this energy. And you can almost see the whole veteran team saying, man, won't you guys just relax a little bit? But they're having too much fun. And it's almost just taken over the character of this organization. And I think in some ways, Kevin and Jeff, the Tiger fans are as captivated by this group of lunch pail young guys who are just out there playing like a college team than they were when it was Miguel Cabrera's team. This is almost more of the ethos of the town in a certain way that the Jays, they could build great teams for a long time. It's going to be hard for them to ever match that 2015 vibe.
Yep.
And the Tigers have that kind of a vibe happening right now.
Yeah, I don't think we should get too crazy. I mean, I would have to ask you who's pitching game 2. But if you think about, like, what brings the best out of AJ would be sort of that methodical thinking, like 2 innings ahead or 2 games ahead on, like, you know, if I start this guy, I got to bring this guy in. When am I bringing the next guy in? It sort of breathes life into the manager. And just me on the outside looking in, and I play with AJ with the Phillies in AAA. He's sort of that overthinker. Like, he likes to think about it before it actually happens. And that just sort of takes out the guesswork from a bunch of young guys, right? It's just like, I got this dude in the first inning. I'm going to throw this guy for 2 innings. I'm going to bring in this guy for another 2 innings. Like, he sort of planned it out, and it's just bringing the best out of everybody, including the manager. Am I onto something?
You are, Kevin. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And I think among the reasons why this team turned around, I don't think it was an accident that it started to happen after the deadline when all these players get moved, including one of their starters, and basically their maybe he was their 1B starter this year in Jack Flaherty after Skubal. He gets traded to the Dodgers, and then AJ and Chris Fetter and Robin Lund, their pitching coaches, look around and say, okay, guys, we got 2 starting pitchers right now. 2. Skubal and Cater Montero, who at that point in time was basically like 2 months in the big leagues. What are we going to do here? And AJ, to your point, it was almost like it was time for the science experiment that he's wanted to do for his whole life.
Yep.
He said, listen, I got Skubal on his day. And by the way, that's for anybody that wants to think about bullpenning and openers and all these different dynamics for as like a permanent strategy. The only reason any of this works is that Skubal is Skubal. You can go back in any time when any team has had success with an opener strategy over a longer stretch of time. You go back to the Rays when they first pioneered the opener. It worked because Blake Snell was winning a Cy Young.
Right.
Madison Bumgarner, if you go back to the 2014 playoffs with a Hall of Fame manager and Bruce Bochy, he was almost the opener before the opener. It was Bumgarner and a merry band of renown, and it worked. And I think that 2014 playoff, if you go back and look at how he actually utilized Tim Hudson, Tim Lincecum, different guys who were hurt, and Ryan Vogelsong, that was based on being really creative with that group and using that bullpen of Affeldt and Lopez and Romo. So they did. And that's basically, Kevin, what the Tigers are doing right now. It's Casey Mize and Maeda and Holt, Tyler Holton and Brant Herter, guys that we haven't talked about a lot, but they're getting outs.
Yeah, I think I read someplace that A.J. Hinch likes to refer to his pitchers as outgetters. Doesn't call them starters, doesn't call them relievers, with the exception of Scooble, but he calls them outgetters. And I got to get 27 outs out of my outgetters.
That's exactly right. And I think it requires, and you've both lived this, where if you're on a team with 5 pitchers, for example, just like take the Jays for one case. If they had tried to do a similar thing, you've got veterans with guaranteed contracts, a lot of years in the game. I don't think it would really work if you said, okay, Gossman, you've got first time through, and then Bassett's going to come in, and then Berrios after him. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really work that way with that type of a staff. But when all these guys have basically 2 and 3 years and less in the game, plus Maeda, who honestly seems to be more comfortable in a multi-inning bulk role anyway, they just take the ball and go with it. And it's such an interesting thing because I don't think this prescription works for everybody, but it's working really well for them right now. And you look around, I'm not convinced that in these days of pitcher injury attrition, take a step back and say the Dodgers, for all the money they've spent on their pitching, whose pitching staff right now would you rather have for game 1 of a playoff series? What the Tigers have or what the Dodgers have after spending all that money? I think the answer is obviously clear that it's Detroit. Mm-hmm. And nobody would have said that a half a year ago. And that's just why, especially the current format of the playoffs, guys, it has become, and actually I had a conversation last night in the Yankee clubhouse with the great Larry Brooks of the New York Post. And Larry basically said, and it's totally right, this has become the random postseason that we love in hockey. We're getting it now in baseball, where it is very difficult to predict.
Yeah, maybe they're the Diamondbacks of 2024. Maybe that's what they are.
Exactly right.
You mentioned the Yankees, and you sort of led this into the perfect way for me to ask this question. How big's the separation between the Yankees and everybody else in the American League?
I think it's significant. Is it insurmountable? No. I mean, there's a path for them to lose without question. And I think we have to remember their bullpen is still a bit of an issue. They're entering the playoffs with Clay Holmes not really himself still. So Weaver might be their closer, or maybe they have to swing Clark Schmidt into a bullpen role. They just lost Nestor Cortez Jr. For possibly the season, which is, I think, a big issue for them. But you look at their club, and last night's game that we had on MLB Network is a good microcosm of this, that the player of the game offensively, yes, Judge hit home run 58, which landed like 2 minutes ago. It was unbelievable. It was in the air for, objectively, it was a 7-minute or 7-second hang time homer. Felt like 7 minutes.
He could have run around the bases twice easily.
It was unbelievable. And Bob Costas was calling the game, and Bob said he was at first base by the time it landed, and he actually was. Like, that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he did hit 58, but the offensive star of the game was Stanton. And he hits a homer, and he drives and runs. And if Stanton is going to hit like that more often than not in October, they probably will win the World Series, because Judge and Soto are going to be on base a ton. And if just probably one of the 2 or 3 guys that hits right after Judge, and that's probably Austin Wells, Stanton, Rizzo bats deeper now in the lineup, but some combination of those guys, Jazz Chisholm as well, I'd put that conversation. If just one of those 3 guys among Chisholm, Wells, and Stanton really gets going and has a hot October, this team's going to be almost impossible to deal with, because Judge, anything that's in the strike zone is a home run right now. He's hit five homers in the last 5 games. Yeah. And then Soto, it's amazing. Aaron Boone was saying this to us in our meeting yesterday before the game. You almost couldn't imagine a better year than what Juan Soto is having right now. 40 homer season at Yankee Stadium. It's just unbelievable. And then he looks at his numbers and sees that, oh yeah, you can't imagine anybody being better than Soto, and Judge has him by like 150 points in OPS. The numbers just don't even make sense. I heard Michael Kay mention the stat a couple days ago that Aaron Judge has now surpassed Joe DiMaggio among Yankee hitters for the most extra base hits in a single season.
That's awesome.
These are the greats of the greats. And right now, Judge, especially Judge, but Judge and Soto are are in the realm of the all-time Yankee legends in terms of teammates to have 40-plus homer seasons the same year. It's Ruth and Gehrig, Mantle Maris, and these two. And I think we have to remember that when we used to talk about Yankee legends and those highlights were all in black and white.
Yeah.
It's in HD now, everybody. We're witnessing historic greatness.
He's the right-handed Barry Bonds. I think that's the only way you can say it. People are terrified of him.
They are, Kevin, and even when pitches are executed well, they become home runs. And that's where, in that ballpark especially, we've all covered big games in that stadium and been involved in them in Kevin's case. Like, all of a sudden, if you're on that mound, not having ever pitched in a game on that mound in the playoffs, but like, that wall has got to feel like it's right over your shoulder. When the crowd is getting that loud and number 99's in the batter's box, where are you going to go? There's no safe place. And also, by the way, Garrett Cole was outstanding last night too, and was able to get above 100 pitches in a year in which he's battled injury. So their momentum, with the exception of that bullpen, their momentum is going about as good as I've seen it for them all season long.
Before I let Jeff jump in here, you just made me think of a question. Who has more pressure on them going into the playoffs, Judge or Ohtani?
It's a great question. I think Ohtani, just because he's never been in the postseason before, and there's this historic. I guess I'll say Ohtani because I think his team has more pressure on it. I think because of the Dodgers' first round failings in the last couple of years, there's this almost palpable anxiety surround the Dodgers. Rarely have I seen a team this talented for the Dodgers seem at the same time this flawed, and where their fans are literally one bad game away from utter panic. Whereas the Yankees have at least this group of guys, they've played enough games. It just seems like they're a little bit more at ease in the spotlight, to where if the Yankees lose one of the first two games of their division series, I don't think they'd panic. I really don't. Judge is so cool and so calm in a way that a lot of the Dodger leaders are too. But there's just something about his presence as the captain now. It is definitively his team. When I talked to him last night, he just had this ease about him where he was the captain who was watching that handshake line after the clinch with a lot of pride and ownership in the culture that they've created. Clark Schmidt was telling me yesterday, and I asked Aaron about it. He said, we all had to show up early to Tampa for spring training because we knew that he was there and we didn't want to disappoint him. That's special. We don't hear that a lot in baseball, where I got to show up early because my captain showed up early. You might hear that in hockey, but you don't hear it in baseball that often. So the Yankees have developed a really cool vibe that I think is durable. And with the Dodgers, it's so much money, it's so much expectations, and the rotation is a gigantic shrug emoji at the moment. And I just think that's not a great way to begin a postseason.
You ain't lying.
Last question before you let you run. I guess the flip side of the Detroit Tigers are my Minnesota Twins.
Way to own them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's about time.
Well, John, is there going to be some sort of comeuppance if they don't make the playoffs this year? And I'm talking about manager, general manager, or maybe even start trading some players away.
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff, because a month ago we thought they were on a glide path to the postseason.
Absolutely.
We're looking really good. And last night I was actually listening to the broadcast at the moment of the double play and extra innings, and you could just hear the despondence in the voice of the Twins radio broadcasters in that moment.
They were critical on TV. Like they tore them a new one on TV too.
Right. Exactly. So there is a profound sense of frustration. Obviously, their next loss knocks them out of the playoffs and puts both the Royals and Tigers in. So we're there on the precipice of their demise for 2024. I don't think that Derek Falvey is in jeopardy. I think there's a lot of trust there between the Pohlad family and Derek, and probably even Thad Levine as well. Coaching staff might be a different conversation, just because it does seem like, and Rocco Baldelli has spoken publicly in the last couple of weeks about his feeling of being bereft almost at the lack of a focused approach at the plate.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it too, Jeff, and the roster might have some change, but various teams have lived with this. When your key players are not healthy, it's a double whammy because A, they're not producing for you, and B, what is the trade value of a Carlos Correa? I love Carlos as a player. He's had an amazing career, but the value, if he's got this plantar fasciitis he's dealing with, a team's going to say, let me look at the physical. There were 2 teams that flunked his physical before he signed with Minnesota. So that contract, you'd have to say, is almost immovable. Lewis, I love, but has been hurt. Buxton, I love, but has been hurt. And so they have to take a big look at their team and say, who are we? Who's going to be healthy? And how do we compete with the Guardians who, we haven't mentioned them much in this conversation, but they're still great. Every year they are. And Ramirez is right there in the top 5 MVP fit yet again. So I think changes are coming, Jeff, there, but I don't believe it's going to be either Falvey or Levine. It's probably going to be coaching staff and maybe the roster.
Yeah, no, it's and that division's not a gimme anymore. Like the idea that the Twins are going to roll into Fort Myers and stay healthy and go win that division, that's not happening now. It's not helping at all. John, thanks for doing this as always, my friend. Enjoy the postseason.
See you soon.
Thanks. Have a great weekend, guys. All the best. Thank you.
Jon Morosi, the MLB Network. And, it's going to be comeuppance in Minnesota. I read some of Rocco Baldelli's comments, and I don't know if you watched any of that. You saw the bunt attempt, the double play. I mean, the TV crew just eviscerated them. That can't happen. It was...
Yeah, I think it was the lead they had, and now they don't have a lead, and that's the issue, right, is how do you get it back? Again, it gets back to that when your best players are not around a lot of the times, and when they are around, they're not doing real well.
Yep.
Who do you blame? And normally it's not the people making the calls, it's the guys on the field. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure Rocco is either caring or he don't care. It's maybe they're at the end where change is happy, and they'll deal with it. And once they deal with it, maybe they're better for it. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Schneider is manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker for Friday on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. A reminder that because this is Friday, we will be going to the back leg line at 5:30. The number, 416-413-3959 is our last Friday in our 4 to 6 slot. So get your questions, observations in for Kevin Barker, 416-413-3959. Well, it is the final weekend of the 2024 season for the Toronto Blue Jays. 7:07 is the first pitch tonight against the Miami Marlins. We had a chance to talk to John Schneider, the manager of the Blue Jays, a little earlier today. I'm very pleased to be joined now by the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, John Schneider. John, as always, we appreciate you joining us today, and trust that you're keeping well. You look good. You look nice, high and tight. Got hair is perfect. Everything's good. Hey, look, I think it's pretty obvious that this season isn't turning out or didn't turn out the way people wanted it to. But what would you say to Blue Jays fans right now who are getting ready for this weekend and sort of trying to make sense of this year and, frankly, look ahead to 2025?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I would say thank you for the support, in terms of how they're coming out to the stadium and supporting us and having our back in a very trying and year that we didn't think was going to unfold this way. So going forward, I think that everyone throughout the organization is going to say that our goal is to win next year. And we are fortunate to have that ability to add players, to make changes, players that we acquired at the deadline that are in the minors that are going to help us. We're in a good spot in a down year, so we've been talking as a group, as a staff, how we can get better with the people that are here, that are going to continue to be here. And we're talking about, potential additions that are going to come help us next year. And again, I think it's not the way we wanted the season to unfold. Everyone knows that. And within that, it's an opportunity to kind of peel back the layers of things that didn't go as we had hoped or planned, not pointing it on bad luck or injuries alone, and to see how we can make things better going into the offseason with the opportunity and the total expectation to win next year.
John, are you comfortable saying that the organization now has urgency?
Yeah, I think it always has, but I think probably, more so than in the last handful of years, no doubt. You can talk about competitive windows or opportunities for certain players to be here. There's always been urgency. And I think that whether you're trying to, rebuild or trying to win a World Series, there's always urgency. And sometimes things don't go according to plan, but I think going into this offseason, from myself and the staff and Ross and the players, there's definitely probably a little bit of a heightened sense of that, because we are in the division we are in, and we do have the expectation to win.
What are some of the things the next 3 games your staff would like to accomplish?
I think, we just talked about it today with the guys in the meeting. There's guys in this building that have been in the situation where these games will dictate your playoff seed. And there's guys that have been here that they haven't been through that yet. So you need to put yourself in that position if you haven't been in that position, and you need to treat it as if you're in that position if you have been in that position, if that makes sense. So the prep, the effort, the compete, the execution, this stuff we talked about all year. And it starts with the players holding each other accountable to do that. And at the end of the day, you're playing 162 games for a reason. It's still Major League Baseball, and there's a pride factor that goes into it. So everything that we talk about in spring training, there's been a lot of turnover in players. There's been ups and downs, but the constant should be how you prepare, how you compete, the effort level, and how you execute. So those are the things we're looking for.
When you look at the division in general and the league in general, John, the Yankees have won the division. They're 26-26. It's the first time a team has won a division with 500 or less, I think, since the 1972 Tigers. We're not going to have a juggernaut team. There's not going to be a 100-win team. Is there any sense at all of lost opportunity on the part of the Jays? Because, Kevin and I talk about this. People forget there was a point in this year where you guys were a game under 500, and then Jimmy goes down. Is there any sense of frustration when you look at what's gone on elsewhere that, this would have been a year where maybe it wouldn't have taken as many wins to get into the postseason as normal?
Yeah, I think you follow the standings and you look up and where you are in relation to, every single day. Maybe not every single day, but you look at it right now and you can pick out, 10, 15 games that you wish the outcome was different, and you're in a totally different position. But baseball seasons are uniquely weird in their own right every single year for every single team. So yeah, I think that if you put injuries, performance, luck, that's all part of it. And there was an area, or there was a period of time where, if we had won a handful more games, probably the trajectory of our season would have been different. You try not to dwell on it, but you look back at even some of the games we played against the Yanks, against Baltimore, against Tampa, against Boston. There's a time, there's a momentum swing, and a lot of those that didn't go our way. And again, they're good teams. They've won the amount of games they have for a reason. But I think, this is, it adds to a little bit of the frustration, because you forget that there was a point in time where things could have changed, in a much different way.
John, how hard has it been to evaluate players in 2024? You've been doing this a long time. You've been at the minor league level. You've been doing that for quite some time. I'm sure there's a little bit of a blueprint on how you go about looking at a player and evaluating and sort of determining on outcome and what it would look like, final product. Has it been tough doing that at the big league level for you the last couple of months?
Yes and no. I think that you have a general thought of a player, and you have to see how they react to certain situations and how they make adjustments. The game is definitely different than it was just 3 years ago, I feel like, and what you have to be able to throw, what you have to be able to hit, and how you have to react to certain things. So it is, I think, not just us or me, but I do think the industry is at a point where there are guys with great track records, and there's guys that have been really good players in this league, and they've had some subpar years, not just here, but around the league. So that conversation has been happening for a while, to where, hey, what's different here? What is this player? Why was he good? Why has he been good? What is being done differently, and how can we stay ahead of it? So from that standpoint, you never really know what they're going to be faced with. You have an idea and you try to prepare them for it, but It is it's a little bit different because the game is different. The game is different in AAA than it is in the big leagues. And you saw that with a lot of young players coming up around the league this year, where you could be a can't miss guy and you struggle, or you could be a guy that's going to help and you end up doing really well. So that part of it has been tough, but there's still some things that we look at in terms of physical attributes that you say, okay, this is what we need. And the game right now is at a spot where it's changing quickly.
Because of the trouble hitting the fastball lineup. I mean, we've talked about this for quite some time now. You think organizational adjustments going into the offseason have to be made? I would think that would start in the minor leagues. So when they get to the big leagues, it ain't a question whether they can hit it or not. Have you guys had conversations about how you attack and get better at hitting the good old number one?
Yeah, I think that amongst a lot of other conversations, starting in the minor leagues up to our team here. Absolutely. It's that part of it I don't think is ever going to change, and guys are starting to throw harder and harder, so that part of it is never going to change. And people can say, okay, you can just go out and replace player X for player Y, and it's not that easy to do. That's where it comes into where, as a group, as an organization, you have to say what is the I don't want to say problem, but what is the difficult part here? What do we have to stay ahead of? How can we make our guys better? It starts in the minor leagues. Definitely starts in the minor leagues. And there's certain trends and certain things that certain teams do well or better than others. And there's a reason why they are where they are, I think. So we've definitely had those discussions, whether it's hitting the fastball, whether it's pitching, executing. Those conversations are ongoing, but we've definitely started to dive into it more.
John, at the end of last year, one of the things Ross said was that they, being the organization, wanted to look at the flow of information, wanted to look at how communication was carried out. In your mind, were the right changes made, and are the Jays, regardless of the standings right now, are you in a better place in that regard than you were last year?
Yeah, I think that there's changes that are going to happen every offseason, and over the course of every year. But I do think what we wanted to change and what we wanted to adjust, we did adjust in terms of the information that we have, the information that we're given, the information that we seek and crave. I think it's getting that to the players in a way where they understand how decisions are made. That was my biggest goal. And part of it is educating the players on things that I may be aware of, or the staff may be aware of, that they're not aware of. And the more that they're aware of it, and the more that they understand why certain things are done, or why a decision is made the way it's made, or just the mathematical numbers that say this is the probable outcome here, and I'm going to react accordingly, the more people are on board with that and understand that, and that can dissect that, the more conviction they're going to have in what they're doing. So that was my biggest goal this year. I feel like that we've definitely taken a huge step forward in that regard. And there's going to be more adjustments to be made this offseason. There's going to be more adjustments to be made to, the way we prepare, to the way we communicate, to the way you practice. All that stuff happens every single year. And you want to try to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. I think that's what we always come back to. You want to try to peek around the corner and see what's going to be next. How can we get there faster? How can we close that gap if there is a gap? And but going back to your question, I think, the flow of communication has definitely improved, and there's going to be ways to continue to work on it.
John, was there a certain game that you can sort of close your eyes and think about that maybe you made a decision that you're thinking now, man, if I hadn't made that decision, the outcome of the game would have been different? Everybody does that. Like I still do that, sitting watching you guys play from afar, thinking, man, if I would have just not pronated at the plate and, could have been more consistent with my lower half, maybe I would have been in the big leagues longer and made more money. Have you been sitting around, this is sort of that time, last week of the season, you think about things like that. Is there a certain game that you can remember that you thinking, man, if I hadn't made that decision, the outcome of the game would have been different?
I think that's the beauty and the horror of this job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could sit here and name a few. I think one that pops into my head is letting Timmy Mesa face Aaron Judge with second, where I think it was the bases loaded, when I brought him in to get Soto out, and he walked Soto on a borderline pitch, and then in comes Judge, and he was scuffling and hits a double down the line. that's a game, you know, I don't even know when that was. That was earlier in the year. Yeah, man. Part of this job is you make decisions, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, you know, all fingers are pointing at me, and I get it, and I respect it, and I've learned how to kind of roll with it a little bit better as the years have gone on. But I think me and 29 other guys think about that every single night. You know, that's just the nature of the job. And all you're trying to do is, you know, I've always said, like, there's the 51-49, right? Like, you want to try to nail the 51 percenters as opposed to the 49 percenters. You want the outcome to go in your way as opposed to going against you. And it doesn't always work that way. You know, but I could sit, we could talk for, you know, 45 minutes about decisions that could have swayed the outcome of our season or a game or anything like that. Whether you pinch hit, whether you don't pitch hit, whether you go on contact, don't go on contact. It's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard. And it's easy to sit here and second guess, but that one jumps out at me because it's a division opponent. We were just talking about the team that won the division, you know. So, but man, there's a lot. You try to limit them, but you know, they happen every single night.
Yeah, John, that's an interesting comment you made, and it's intriguing that you're sitting around and that's the first thing that popped in your mind. And when we were talking urgency earlier about the organization and do they have it, and you know, it's good to hear that. And I think when I started thinking about your answer, it sort of comes full circle back around to you. And are you prepared or capable of managing with urgency from the first game of the season? I think that's a very fine line on how to try and do that. Do you think you're prepared to do that? Or is that an odd question and not a fair question to ask this early before the season starts going into next year?
No, I think that's fair. You know what I mean? I think that's totally fair. And the answer is absolutely yeah. You know, we get it. Players get it. Coaches get it. Organizations get it, where you have a finite amount of time to make a difference, right? And without question, you can look up and say that we're at that turning point right now. There's no way to kind of scoot around it, right? So I think that's why conversations have already started over the past couple of weeks with myself, with the front office, with the staff, with the players. You're constantly trying to get better. You're constantly trying to tweak things that you're doing. And a lot of times you look in the mirror and you say, what am I doing? And is it working? Is it not working? Do you have to adjust around your personnel? I mean, perfect world, players are driving it, right? Players are living it. Players are driving it. And that starts in day one of spring training. And that's my job to get them ready. When it gets off the rails, you know what I mean, do I have to take a different approach? Does the staff have to take a different approach? Do the veterans have to take a different approach? But every game matters. Whether it's opening day, whether it's, you know, last week in the series against the Marlins, you know, every game matters. And I do think that certain, you know, teams in certain times, they hit that point where there is a definite sense of urgency that needs to happen. And we're definitely at that point. So ready to tackle that in the offseason, ready to tackle that in spring training, and ready to tackle that from the home opener next year.
John, listen, we appreciate you joining us today. You've been great all year. You've been more than generous with your time, different time zones, Zoom, phone, technical challenges, all that stuff. Again, you know, we appreciate it. Have a great final weekend in Toronto, and we'll be talking in the offseason.
Yeah, we appreciate it, John.
Yeah, we do, John.
We poked at you quite a bit all season, and you
should, right?
Yeah, you've answered every question we've asked you, so we appreciate you for that.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate being candid. I appreciate you guys poking when you need to poke. I get that it comes with the job and it comes with these guys performing. And I can promise you that we're going to be hard at work, you know, from the get-go to be ready to get right back at it next year. But I appreciate your guys' time, and always love chatting with you guys.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Be well.
See you, buddy.
So there you go. Jon Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. The Jays wrap up their season. And, you know, look, as far as we know, John did a sit-down with Shohei Davidi. As far as we know, he's back as manager. Reading the tea leaves, it doesn't seem as if there's going to be any great changes. Now, I mean, it's Friday. We'll probably hear from Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, I would imagine, at some point next week, maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, whenever. My gut, there's probably going to be changes in the coaching staff. I would think Don Mattingly's probably going to be interviewed for a managerial job. I mean, he was interviewed last year, managerial job. I would think that'd be a possibility. But the fact, Kevin, that it seems as if this organization, well, we know that they've been talking about next year for a long time now. And the fact that Ross and John are very much part of those negotiations, part of those discussions would make me think that they're probably coming back. Again, I could be wrong. Mark Shapiro's got a year left in his contract. He could wake up Monday and go, well, but that's not the sense you get.
Yeah, I don't know how you can evaluate or grade John Schneider, the coaching staff, this year.
Well, I think you can evaluate the coach. I think you
like
can I think you look at the hitting coaches.
They've been. Oh boy, you just stuck your head down that. That's been going on for years. Like that. They're no different this year than they were 2 years ago.
That's right.
When it comes to the hitting coaches,
That's right.
First of all, there's too many of them. I mean, we can all come to that realization, and it quite frankly gets back to, and I think John was trying to say it without saying it, more talent needs to be in here. Like that. That's basically where it's
bottom
at.
line.
Absolutely.
The bottom line
that's
is
the point of how you grade coaches and a manager. Get him talent. Don't get off to a good start. Then you make changes. Until then, how do you do it?
I mean, I would just ask people, go back and look at the lineups. Go back and look at the box score.
Look at the bullpen.
That's how you got to look at the box scores of the last couple of months of Jays games, and tell me honestly how many times the Jays had the better player at each position. That's my challenge to people. That's my challenge.
Even when Bo was in the lineup this year, because of where Bo was at.
Yeah, I'm not even.
That wasn't the case.
No, I'm not even talking about that. Forget Bo. I'm just talking about the Jays, the lack of level of talent on this team. I would just invite you to do that. And that's why I've said, and I believe all along, I thought it was interesting. You asked John to pinpoint games or a game where he might have done something differently.
Yep.
And he picked that Yankees game with Tim Mesa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the thing. Why was Tim Mesa on the team?
Because they didn't have anybody else.
Do you think John Schneider absolutely, positively pounded on the table that, the bullpen was brought back by the front office, and it was basically the same bullpen. And they played with fire and they got burned.
Yep.
Bullpens implode.
Yep.
Guys who don't have stuff, guys who don't throw hard. At some point, the pixie dust wears off. We saw that with Trevor Richards. We saw it with Tim Mesa.
Yeah.
Now, that is because the front office put faith in those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've always felt this with John Schneider is what was he working with?
Yeah.
Never mind the lineup. I would invite you to go back and look at the box scores of games in May and June. Look at the other team's bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
And try to tell me which team had the stronger bullpen at any point. So that's what I'm getting. I've always said, in this day and age, you judge a manager by how he uses the bullpen, when he gets guys up, when he gets guys into games, when he makes pitching changes. And I know that there's a lot involved in that. But at the end of the day, he can only use what he has.
Yeah, he speaks for the organization. Hopefully it's not word salad. They go out and fix it. They get better talent here.
Yeah, it's not word salad with John.
And then you hit the ground running. Hopefully that's the case.
September 29th is the 20th anniversary of the final game at Olympic Stadium for the Montreal Expos. We're going to talk to the guy who caught the last play. He caught the ball, the final ball ever put in play at Olympic Stadium. He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet.
CNS works this ball. Pop up left side. Mike Mordecai, go figure, a former Expo to make the catch. And that is a very sad day. The end of a sad day for the city of Montreal, for our country. The last out at Olympic Stadium. A fly ball by Termel Sledge to former Expo Mike Mordecai at third base. Frank Robinson will take that ball and put it in his trophy case. An historic ball it is. On a night when the Montreal Expos fall 9-1 to the Florida Marlins.
Well, that was Sam Cosentino's call of the final out of the final game played at Olympic Stadium on The Score. Shout out The Score. Yeah, it was September 29th, 2004. The Expos would go on to play the Mets. The final Expos game ever as the Expos was against the Mets. And fittingly, it was kind of odd because that was the first Expos game ever in 1969. It was at Shea Stadium against the Mets. But that was it for baseball in Montreal. Of course, there were rumors a couple of years ago about the Tampa Bay Rays splitting games between Montreal and Tampa. That, of course, turned out to be simply just part of a negotiating ploy on the part of baseball, maybe more so than the Rays, to be honest. I mean, there's a backstory to that would take an hour and a half to explain. But I thought a lot about that game, that September 29th game yesterday when we were watching, as we were doing this show, we were watching the Oakland Athletics play their final game in Oakland. And different situations, obviously. The Expos had been owned by Major League Baseball for, I believe, 3 years when this final game was played. And, of course, the Athletics are still owned by John Fisher. He's just moving the team. But there's so many things, as is often the case with baseball, that tie things together, right? So many odd occurrences, whatever you want to call them, ironies, things like that. And you heard Sam Cosentino describe there, one of the greatest ironies of the final out was that the ball was caught by Mike Mordecai, who had been an infielder for the Montreal Expos. Of course, he longtime member of the Atlanta Braves, won a World Series with the Braves in '95, would go on to coach in the Jays system and with the Jays organization. And Mike Mordecai came into the game as the defensive replacement. He catches the final ball put in play at Olympic Stadium, and we're very pleased to be joined by Mike Mordecai. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to talk to you again. It's been a while. Do you ever look back at that particular play? And look, I know you've done a lot in your career, obviously, but look back in that particular play and kind of go, of anybody who's going to catch the ball, it would be me, a guy who'd played with the Expos.
Actually thought about it a couple of times, knowing that I probably would be in the game late. And once Sledge came up, he's a left-handed hitter, a lot of foul balls or a lot of balls put in play that might get to the stands, things like that would be toward third base. And knowing what type of hitter he was, I thought, I might get a chance here if we get one on his hands. So I was ready for. We kind of had a deal in place, and I've never really shared this with anyone about that final out on the baseball and all that kind of stuff. So if you guys want to hear it, I'll let you in on it.
Absolutely, because you know what? I've had so many people ask me what happened to that ball, and I said only one human being knows for sure. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, I'll take you guys through this thing because a lot of times when there's historical moments like that, I guess, in the game, and I mean this has happened throughout sports with football and I guess way back in the USFL. Excuse me, was the USFL actually before the USFL here in the States? There was the American Football League that played for a little while, and then I think the Birmingham team was in the championship there, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, originally. So there were stories about that and what happened to the last ball put in play at a game ball and all these types of stuff. So here's what happened that night. And I'm sharing with you guys. I've really not very many people know this, but anyhow, I think there's a statute of limitations, so maybe I can give it.
Yeah, there is.
I don't think anybody's going to come after me about this, but so what happens is Perry Hill is our our infield guy there in Florida, which, you know, he was up there in Montreal with us for a little while. And he comes to us, the guys that are in the game, and goes, "Hey guys, whoever makes the last out, you guys want to keep the ball?" And some guys didn't say anything. He was like, whatever. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, if I get it, I'll keep it." So he says, "Well, listen, Frank Robinson wants the ball." So I'm like, "Well, what's he want the ball for?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do with it, whatever." And so I'm like, "I want the ball." So he says, "Well, here's what's going to happen. When the last out's made, if you're the guy, whoever, you guys come off the field as quick as you can, and I will have another ball in my hand, and we'll just do the old switcheroo. I'll give you that ball. You keep the other one in your glove, and when Frank, whoever asks for that ball, you just pull out the one that I give you and toss it to him, and then you keep the ball." So I'm sitting here thinking about it a little bit, and also at play in this was Carl Pavano, another former Expo.
Mm-hmm.
Carl winning that game set the Marlins franchise record for wins in a season.
That's right.
So now Carl's going to want a ball. He's going to want the game ball. And I can't remember who the pitcher was on the bench that brought that up. It could have been Josh Beckett, Brad Penny. I really don't remember. But anyhow, ball goes up, and I catch the ball. And, you know, the dugouts and all right there, you know, in Olympic Stadium are very close. So Perry pops out of the dugout, hands me a ball, and then Frank, sure as the world, here comes Frank. He's up toward home plate, and he's yelling, and Perry goes, "Hey, look over there. Frank wants," you know. So I had the game ball in my glove. I also had the ball that Perry gave me stuck in my glove. And when Frank asked for it, he's waving his hand. So I reach in, I grab the ball Perry gives me, and I toss it to Frank, you know, and he's, "Yeah, great." So I got the ball in my glove, and now I know Pavano is possibly going to want this game ball because he just set the franchise record for wins in a season. So as I'm going down through the dugout, I reach in the bat rack there, and where foul balls that are, you know, the bat boys that are chasing the balls down, ball boys, whatever, they stuff balls in the little cubby hole in there. I grab one out and put it in my glove, and I'm heading to the clubhouse. Well, as soon as I go down the little concourse, I get to the clubhouse, there's Pavano. He's standing at the doorway, and he's like, "Hey, Morty, you got that ball?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I knew you'd want it." So I grabbed the ball that I got out of the cubby, and I handed it to him. And I keep the actual game ball in my glove, and I go to my locker, wrap it up in a sanitary, stuff it down in the bottom of my bag in a pair of shoes, and I've had that ball to this day. I've got it with some autograph balls and stuff I have up in my attic. Now, what my intentions were, as I thought about it, the longer I thought about it, was to give that ball to the family that helped start baseball in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And I spoke to a couple of people. Is that the I'm trying to remember the name now.
The Bronfman family?
Yeah, the Bronfman family. I'm sorry, the Bronfman family. And so I spoke to Mel Didier.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mel Didier, you know, most of us know who Mel Didier is, and he said, "Listen, I can get in touch with him, and I can set this up, and you can give him that ball." And so, a couple of years, this happened in 2004, that last game. Now this is in I want to say this is 2012, 13, 14 when I finally tell someone about this, and I tell Mel Didier, and he supposedly had a conversation with them. I was going to set something up for me to get that ball to them. Of course, Mr. Bronfman, I think, passed away, and then, of course, not long after that, Mel Didier, we lost him, and so it's really never happened. But I still have that ball, and I think someone had said that game ball was going to be sent to the Hall of Fame or whatever, but I really thought it belonged with them. And that they could keep it on a mantle, whatever they wanted to do with it, put it somewhere there as a historical, artifact and whatever museum, or whatever they wanted to do there in Montreal with that ball. But that's where the ball is. It's up in a box in my attic right now.
You know what? Actually, Charles is still alive.
Oh, okay. He's still alive. Who? So someone.
And his son is Steven.
Okay, Steve. Now, someone had passed away that Mel Didier spoke with about this. That's connected to that family, and I don't know who that was, but he came to me and said, "Hey, he just passed away," and I'm like, So, anyhow, so there may be something to that. If that's something that they want, and anyone can connect the dots, I can come up with that in baseball.
There you go.
But that's what happened to it. But that was a sad evening for me personally, because I kind of, coming up in Atlanta's organization and playing there for a few years, and and being a role player there, I didn't hit the field that much, but we still, we go to 2 World Series, go to playoff all 3 years. But I learned to play as a major leaguer in Toronto. I mean, Felipe Alou gave me an opportunity there. Jim Beattie, the general manager, those guys gave me an opportunity to come up there. We really had some young players, and they said, "Hey, we think you can help our group. Just do what you can to help them out. Try to keep them loose. It's not going to be a lot of wins here for us." And so I knew what I was getting into when I went there, and I really learned to play as a big league player there. So that evening, and knowing some guys across the field, that was a sad evening. Knowing people that had come there to that stadium for years and years and years, and there's not a ton of them that did that, but there were some, the diehard fans, and to know how sad they were that this is probably it. They may never have another franchise there again. It was kind of a bittersweet evening.
Mike, I watched the game in Texas and Oakland, and they were talking about the security and what the players were going to do when the last pitch was thrown, and I think it was a ground ball to shortstop. Where you go, let's hurry up and get off the field. Was there any talk like that when obviously you told the story about how fast you were getting off the field for other reasons, but that was there conversations before the game with players and security about this is going to happen? Make sure you're here. Make sure you guys are aware of what's going on, and just so everybody's safe.
Yeah, we got a bad connection there, but I don't know if I understood. We were just talking about everyone getting out of there safe and having conversations. I didn't.
Yeah, about security and conversations before the game, and just so the players and everybody that were watching the game, the last game there, because you know how it is, right? Fans want to be a part of that. Yeah. They'll run on the field, that kind of thing. Were there talks with security and the players just to make sure everybody's safe?
I really don't remember a lot of talk about any of that. I just remember knowing that there could be people after souvenirs and things like that. But we weren't really informed about any of that type of stuff. That, hey, you guys got to get off the field as quick as you can for this reason or that reason or the other reason. We just all made our way to the locker room, and some of us kind of hung around a little bit in the concourse there. After the fact, came back out of the clubhouse and just stood there for just a few minutes and just to see what was going on, out on the field. But it was kind of tough to watch, because I just read a little article in I think it was USA Today about the Oakland A's, and it's over for them there, and they kind of liken it to a funeral. The last thing you do is view the body there, and I kind of saw the body as the stadium, and baseball's not going to be there no more. It's not alive here anymore. So that was it. But nothing. I don't remember any conversations with anybody about safety concerns or anything like that.
Mike, what are you up to now?
I'm the athletic director and head baseball coach, football receivers coach at Northside Methodist Academy down in Dothan, Alabama. Of my 4 kids, my daughter's teaching at Roswell High School in Atlanta, Georgia. My oldest son graduated at the University of South Alabama, and he's in the physical therapy program here at a junior college Middle son's at the same college there, Wallace at Dothan. He's in the computers, and my youngest son's a junior at Northside Methodist, and little three-sport athlete. He's left-handed though. I can't teach him a lot of interest. He's left-handed, but so he pitches and plays outfield. He's a quarterback on the football team, and he's a shooting guard on the basketball team. So I get to watch him, and it's enjoyable. My wife, she's a glue, holds everything together here. So we're just plodding along. I mean, I do keep up with baseball, but not as closely as I once did. I mean, there's so many things going on.
Yep.
And usually when we get down to this time of year, it's the playoffs and it starts getting serious, and I'll tune in on some games and see how things are going.
Mike, Saturday. Hold on, I got to ask you about Georgia, Alabama. Mike, who you got Saturday night, 7:30? Who you got?
Well, I think honestly, I really don't know what this is going to look like. I think Alabama's going to move the ball against Georgia's defense.
Yeah,
and I think Alabama's defense is better than people think it is. So this ought to be an absolute war down in Tuscaloosa. Well, I just root for a good football game. That's what I'm after. I'm an Alabama fan. I don't dislike Auburn. But it'll be a big game. That's all people's talked about now for not just these past 2 weeks because they had a bye week and all. It's just been talked about back there in the summer when the schedules came out and all this. Is like, hey, it's going to be a tussle here. So it'll be interesting. I'll be sitting in front of the TV, start to finish.
Yeah, me too.
Game.
I can't wait.
Mike, listen, it was really good to talk to you again. Be well, my friend. Thanks for this.
See you later. Thanks for coming on, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks, fellas. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Mike Mordecai, former MLB infielder. He was with the Expos from 98 to 2002. So there you go.
It's a great story.
It's a great story. We've talked about it. I know Stephen Bronfman's in Montreal. I mean, folks in Montreal, if you can get a hold of the Bronfman family, Terry Mosher, I'm throwing out to you because I know you've got you've just done a great Expos book. A little bit of help for me, just a little bit of help. But I mean, you've done a great Expos book, and I know you know the family. So anybody hearing this, talk to Terry Mosher. See if we can get the ball to the Bronfman family.
Yeah,
or wherever they want it to go.
Mike's willing to give it up
wherever they want it to go.
Absolutely.
See now, and I got to tell you something because
seems like he feels bad.
Well,
I think that's what Mike's doing.
See, I asked him. I know because he was a coach. I mean, he was around the Blue Jays, and I remember talking about this. I don't ever remember him saying that. Goes, and I think most people thought it had gone to Frank Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I had been told that no, he threw it into the crowd by somebody with the Marlins, which I frankly wasn't buying because I think everybody knew what it was about. But
you would think they'd mark him.
See, I don't think, and I could be wrong. I don't think Major League Baseball had an authenticator
maybe
at those games. I'm pretty certain that because I knew most of the people. I spent so much time at Olympic Stadium. I practically lived there. I mean, I knew most of the people who were sort of in and around there. I don't remember an authenticator. I think the trainers usually had to authenticate things. I mean,
it was 2004. I mean, it wasn't 1904. I mean, holy moly!
Yeah, but it was. But things were different then.
Yeah,
things were just different then.
I try to remember when I played if there was one of those around and it wasn't the trainer.
I honestly don't remember when I first started. Actually, that's not true. And we should get somebody on to talk about this. If I'm not mistaken, the first time I remember something like this happening was when Barry Bonds was pursuing the home run record. I think. No, you know what? It was McGuire and Sosa, the home run derby. I think they were using specially marked balls for those at bats.
Yeah.
I think. And that because I vaguely remember, of course, baseball being baseball, pitchers were saying, "Oh, these balls are different." No wonder they're hitting them. And who knows? Back then, the way the game was, they could have been.
I think it's funny that the pitcher wanted the ball because of winds. I think that's funny.
But that's a baseball story.
Absolutely, that actually wins matter from starting pitchers. I think it's funny that Mike just wanted to throw that in there, that a pitcher that basically broke a record and wanted the ball because of wins. Yeah. And now khakis can't wait to poo on the win. It's funny. I mean, it's a great story.
It's a great.
We appreciate Mike coming on here and telling us. You can tell that he feels a little bad.
Oh yeah, he does.
You can tell that it's still in the sock in Miami.
Well, no, I think he's got it on a thing now. But it is one of those things that at the moment seemed like a good idea. And at least it didn't end up on the market. At least it's not like that the jack wagon that caught Shohei Ohtani's ball once, whatever.
He's everywhere.
I got no time for that. But anyhow, so we'll see. I don't. Maybe we broke a little news here again. Maybe we can do something here to get this ball.
We could get the right people headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yes, we could.
And then people would just have to trust us that
we're trustworthy.
We are trustworthy. You're laughing. I'm staring at you. It is Friday. That means it's time to go to the back leg line. Mm-hmm. The number, as always, 416-413-3959. So let's take a break. Come back. We'll get your thoughts, your observations again. 416-413-3959. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, we are back. We're making news.
How well Mike?
Pretty well.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool that he'd come on here and say he wants to give the ball back. Pretty cool.
The last time I really talked to him in depth, he was a coach with the Jays, and it was actually the only time I flew in the Jays charter. Our play-by-play guy at the time was sick, and they had me go along as the color person to fill in, so I got to fly in the Expos charter. I remember that because I moved my seat back, and I think I upset the sushi tray on the training staff. But anyhow. I did. I'm not used to flying.
Leave it to you.
Yeah. But Mike was on the flight, and I think we just talked. We're on the bus going to the hotel in Tampa and just talked.
So did you keep any balls lately?
I've asked him that. No, I've asked him that. I asked him about. Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's awesome.
I would too.
Yeah. He felt bad. He's been sitting around. He's getting a little older. He's like, man, what am I going to do with this ball? I can't sell it. Why would I sell it? I need to give it back. It means more to them than me.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if you ever ran across Mike as a player or anything. He's been around for a long time. Fire hydrant, man, like just.
Yeah. College football fan, too. You can see. I had to ask.
And he's a
Alabama, Georgia's huge, boy. Man. And with the weather and people trying to get there.
Alabama, Florida, that's like Liverpool and Man City or Man United.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it is. Anyhow, it is Friday, which means tomorrow's Saturday, followed by Sunday. We will be back on Monday, which follows Sunday, from 4 to 6 Eastern on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. That will be our last 2-hour show. But that doesn't mean you're going to get rid of us. Not yet. I mean, the puck heads are going to take over and dominate things, and, because that happens. And, but we'll be on from 3 to 4.
Hockey's a big deal.
Every day through the playoffs on Sportsnet 360 and Sportsnet 590.
Yes.
So we'll have a lot of our same guests. Same guests will be on. Samson, Passing, they'll be on. We'll be talking about the playoffs. And, we'll have fun. We'll also, at some point, deal with the year-end news conferences from Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, we hope. And when that happens, we will... if there's news out of that, we'll be all over it. Anyhow, Sportsnet 590, The Fan, sportsnet.ca, only places you need to go to get all your Blue Jays news, whatever it is. This is Friday. That means we go to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. Liz from Toronto had this to say or ask.
First of all, thank you very much for a great season. Always love to come home and watch you guys and really enjoy your broadcast. Couple of thoughts. Cleveland Guardians, they're headed to the postseason, obviously. and they're very strong. And Shapiro and Atkins are not managing that team. So food for thought on that one. And next, I just want to talk about the Detroit Tigers and where they've come from and where they are. And they kind of remind me of the Arizona Diamondbacks when Arizona was like not even a second thought. And then, they ended up in the World Series. So I don't know. I keep an eye on Detroit. I'd like to get your thoughts on the Tigers and see what you guys think. But hopefully the Jays will pull it together in the off season, and we'll have a team to talk about in same time next year. Thanks again. Huge fan. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, I ain't tackling the first one. The first one.
I mean, they're not with the Guardians.
Yeah,
anymore,
they're
that's
not.
true.
That's I'm not gonna go that.
We'll just leave that.
The second one, I just wondered, like, it's when does playing with house money run out? Like, the playoffs, I get it. The difference between the Diamondbacks is they did have a couple of starters. They had a little bit better bullpen, I think, and they had better hitters.
Yeah.
Like, their lineup was longer. Like, it was harder to pitch to them. Better pitchers had to work harder to get through the Diamondbacks lineup than they would the Tigers. So
I will.
That part of me just has I have a tough time, too.
Yeah.
Who pitches game 2?
Well, here's the thing.
Hard.
We had Jon Morosi on talking about this, and going into every series, you say, okay, this guy's got to be big for this team. This guy's got to be big for this team. And I think what you heard from talking to John is there may be no more important single person in the postseason, this round at least, than Tarik Skubal, because for whatever the Tigers are going to do in game 3, it all falls apart if Tarik Skubal craps the bed and only goes 3 2/3 of 4 innings.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they win that game, it falls apart. He essentially has to give them 8 and turn it over to the bullpen. And
6 or 7 with the lead. I think that's important.
I think it's maybe even more. But my point is, I don't think there's any other single player in the first round who, if they don't perform up to their level, that's just going to create that. I think that'll be the death knell for the Tigers.
I think they are, again, what do they got to lose mentality?
Yeah.
I think that's an easy thing going into the playoffs. We have the best pitcher in the American League this year, hopefully going in game 1. And then AJ's actually played it out when it comes to who starts, who follows. How do you get it to whoever you're trying to get it to in the pen? Like, he's actually done it already. It's not doing it for the first time in the playoffs, right?
That's a great point.
So it's again,
it's like game 163 for the Tigers.
Yeah, I don't sort of think that they can make a deep run at it. But again, would you be surprised if they did?
Nah,
maybe. I don't know. This is why you love baseball. Like, they came from nowhere. They were 10 back like
they're hot, man.
2 months ago. They've turned it around like this. They believe their best players are being their best players. Their manager knows how to do these kind of things. He knows how to get the best out of young dudes. Like, that conversation back and forth, he's on point with that. So, again, I don't think they're as good as the Diamondbacks were last year, but they do have the best pitcher in the American League.
And I'm going to say this. They're the teams. No, I won't say that. I was going to say I think that the Diamondbacks had a harder road last year than the Tigers would have this year. Because National League teams are better.
I mean, they got the Phillies last year.
Timothy in Vancouver.
Yeah, Kevin, I just want to congratulate both you guys for another great season. Even though it was tough sledding for the team sometimes, you guys always made the show interesting and had the best guests.
Thank you, sir.
None of you guys went 2 for 40. You were raking it all year. But my question is, if you and Jeff can both answer this, if you were a general manager for a day, what are the 4 must-haves for next year going in? What we don't have to name names, just maybe position, like position and power hitter, closer. What are your thoughts? I give you 4 blank checks. What do you need for next year? Again, have a great off season. Take care.
Me or you first?
You go first.
Okay. The very first thing I'm going to do is sign Vladdy. Signing Vladdy will allow me to get better in here.
That's the same thing as I had.
Bigger time,
1.
absolutely. Bigger time, whatever that number is, there's your biggest, I think, check of all of them. And then 2 thumpers and a closer. I've been saying that for, 3 months now, at least 3 months. ever since Jimmy Garcia got hurt June 17th and they were a game under 500. How do I know that date? It's like it just runs off the tongue. There's my 4 checks. Yeah. 2 thumpers that are not here, a closer that's not here, and giving Vladdy, I don't want to say it's a blank check because I'm going to negotiate and I'm going to make sure that both parties are happy when one's signing it and one's showing up, and he seems to think he'll do whatever it takes to help a team win, which is play third base. So I hope that helped. That would be me. I think for me, it's a no-brainer. I think it's played out right in front of you. I think if you think you can win in the American League East and you can be better and have an opportunity to play meaningful games from the trade deadline next year, I think you have to do those 4 things. If you don't, I think 4th place smells really good.
I'm with you, number 1. I wrote down right away, Vladdy, sign Vladdy. I would like to see a lefty power hitter, a legit lefty power hitter. Or, I'm not going to get picky. If you get Pete Alonso, Rooker, whatever. But the point, I'm with Kevin. I want at least one, definitely a closer. There's no doubt about that. And I don't know how I'd go about doing this because I've got so much to do. I've thought about the leadoff spot, and I just don't know if I want anybody they have leading off right now. And I understand that's a huge.
I think he's hurt.
Maybe.
Ain't no maybe.
Maybe.
I think you get.
But we're on the same page for the 3. Vladdy, the closer. And I don't know. Do you have a preference, lefty, or you don't really care?
I don't.
Righty.
And best 2 hitters on the market.
Okay. And if he plays first base, I'm okay with Vladdy at 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, you could trade for Rooker. Why would the A's give up Rooker? That's the thing you got to ask yourself. It's like Miller. Yeah, I think you'd have better chance of trading for Miller than you would Rooker. That's just me because of how hard he throws, the injuries that hard throwers get quicker. I think there's some urgency with with the Blue Jays and what the A's think they can get from the Jays. So there's some ways to be creative.
Yeah. Need to be creative. Just spend money to sign Vladdy and make smart trades. You don't have to be creative. You got a $235.
Smart trades is creative.
Yeah, you got a bullet. You got a $235 million payroll. If you want to be, you know who needs to be creative? The Cleveland Guardians need to be creative. Kelsey from Toronto. I'm tired of the creative nonsense. Kelsey in Toronto.
I'm wondering who you got, Braves or Mets?
Ooh.
I think it comes down to the games on Monday and back to the Blue Jays. Thinking of Will Wagner. Do you think he's just maybe like a bit of a David Schneider in that he has a hot streak, and should we really be committing to him at second next year? What about Spencer Horwitz? I don't know why he hasn't been playing there. Anyways, have a great offseason, guys.
Thank you.
I'm going with the Braves just because I had picked the Braves at the start of the year. If it comes down to that. Yeah. Am I confident it's going to come down to that? I'm not confident.
I think it's how they use Sale. I think is what's up. When's he pitching? Yeah. And can they use him Monday? That's the thing you got to ask yourself, right? I do think it comes down to, they're basically going to think, how do we smother? They're playing Kansas City, right? Yeah, I think it's Kansas City. How do we sweep Kansas City and make Monday not matter?
Yeah.
That, I think, is what they're trying to do. Sounds like that's the way they're going to set up their starting pitching. But for me, man, say Sale pitches tomorrow. It's tomorrow? Yeah. Tomorrow. And then maybe you could bring him back Monday for a couple innings. I don't know. It'll be intriguing to see. But that for me, I'll take the Braves.
The best case scenario for the Braves, though, is that Minnesota loses tonight and that wild card is tied up and Kansas City.
Mets are getting Lindor back, which will help morale, and we got our best back, and he's having a great year, and all those kind of things. Look, I have no idea why Hortz is not playing second. I've been saying that forever. It ain't about catching it anymore. Like, it's about giving you an at-bat. And you talk about leadoff hitter, right there he is.
Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of people in the organization.
They don't like him.
Pardon me. Excuse me. They really like Will Wagner, and that's one of those things they have access to more information than I do. Part of me also wonders, if they're not talking up the dude's value. That does happen. How we don't want to trade Will Wagner. Now, of course, he's hurt. So
I mean, come on. All you got to do is watch a game if you're an opposing. I mean, an organization. I mean, it's like you watch the game on tape and you can watch a dude, you give you a competitive back and he throw a ball from the, behind second base to get a fast runner out at first. Like, it's not rocket science. Again, I got what you say. This is just me. If they bring in two thumpers, I don't care who plays second, I don't care who catches.
That's right.
As long as that dude playing second ain't hitting second. That, for me, that's the one thing you'd have to pull your hair out about is if he hits the top of the order, that wouldn't make any sense. But if he hits ninth and plays second, Kelsey, who cares? I think that's where it's at. I think that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm at with the catching part of it, too. I don't care who catches.
Emma from Calgary.
It's a good question, though.
Just wondering, given the age of the starting rotation and the ups and downs of the starters this year, and then some unknowns in guys like Yariel, should the Blue Jays focus on finding some bullpen arms that are lawn relievers so that they have more guys to eat more innings if necessary? Like, do they need more bulk relievers as opposed to just swing and miss guys? I don't think you can count on the starters reliably going 7 innings anymore. So I'm just wondering if that should factor in. And I also just want to say that you both have been a bright light in a very disappointing and frustrating season. And I love listening every day. So thanks for all that you do.
Thanks
Bye.
very much. And I do want to say this. I want to, we're coming back next week anyhow. But Kevin makes it a lot easier. Kevin makes it easy to not always take things too seriously. And I think one of the things we tried to do in this show, because look, you know who we work for. You know who owns the Blue Jays. We try to have fun with it. We try to keep it not personal in most instances.
Except when you're wrong.
And that's it. So, we appreciate the sentiment.
It helps when we've had 4 callers in a row who know what they're talking about and have legitimate conversations to baseball people.
We've got,
like that helps a lot. So
we've got good,
this show doesn't work without the people.
Yeah, and we've got good
facts.
We've got a good producer and technical people, and we get good guests.
Question.
So
absolutely. Here's what I.
Having said that, keep saying nice stuff.
Absolutely. Here's what I said. I have asked around, and I said, how many arms do you legitimately think you need going into the offseason? I've got the same answer 3 or 4 different times. It's 4.
Yeah.
That will tell you because of the older rotation, they've had conversations about what Emma's talking about to shorten their length, right? I want to get quality more than 6 or 7 all the time, right? So what that would do is if I can go out and get, say, 4 arms, now it's a 5-inning starter game instead of a 6 or 7 starter inning game. I can make them last longer, and now I can shorten it and make a high school game. I can win more baseball games that way. I bring it back to what C.J. Nikowski said the other day. Why the Braves been able to do this and have games matter Monday because of what they lost throughout the season. And he said the bullpen. Why can't the Jays do that?
I got to say this. If they bring Ryan Yarbrough back, they've solved 90% of your problem right there, Em.
Wouldn't hurt, but again, would you rather spend what you give to him on a legitimate thumper? Or would you try and go out and maybe trade for a couple of bullpen arms to solidify the 6th and 7th inning guy or the 8th and 9th inning guy?
His contract isn't going to
Got to have a reason why you're bringing him in, right? And how you're going to use him.
His contract isn't going to cost you a thumper.
The Yariel Rodriguez thing, and Emma made the point. That's going to be the intriguing part of that. And will Belton Francis look like this? That, for me, is the one. Is it Davis Schneider? Is he the pitching version of Davis Schneider? That's the one. That is the one for me. I love the dude. I could sit and listen to him talk forever.
You know what
but that's the one. He throws 90.
I'm gonna say this though.
And he said he needs to throw harder.
I'm gonna say this though. He has still managed to win games and flirt with no-hitters on days where he is not good.
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
No, but I'm saying I have a lot more faith in him as a pitcher than I do in Davis Schneider.
Well, Davis Schneider, in my mind, I love him. Can't be on your team next year.
Gerald from Prince George, BC.
Just kind of wondering why you guys seem to be pretty hard on Kirky. And just a comment, how does this organization carry on without Vladdy? I think he's everything, and to this team and to the public and the fans. Just a comment from you guys. Love your show. Keep it going.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald. I appreciate it. I'm with you, Vladdy.
I think we've been nice to Kirk.
Oh, I haven't been until
he started hitting and living up to what we thought he could do.
Look, I just didn't think. I mean, I understood how good he was defensively. You know, the defensive metrics bear that out. I thought he was sloppy behind the plate at times. I didn't like
offensively.
I didn't like the way the games necessarily ran with him behind the plate. But yes, and he wasn't hitting. It's to the point now where, you know, I needed to see, okay, you know, they traded Danny Jansen. This is your chance to show us how much of a workload you can handle. And we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. I will admit that when I sit down at the end of the year and say, what are the 5 things I like this year? I feel better about Alejandro Kirk now than I have at any point in his career with the Blue Jays because I've seen him improve with more work. But I'm also with Kevin on this. Have him and a James McCann guy or whoever, hell, maybe even bring Tyler Heineman back next year. As long as they're hitting 8th or 9th or wherever the hell it is and giving me good defense, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But I think I will admit I've changed on Kirk a lot. I've changed on Kirk a lot.
He's one of the guys that John was talking about with Shohei, Davidi, the unrealistic expectations.
Yes,
he's one of the guys.
Absolutely.
Like, let's not lie about it. Gerald,
he's not a silver slugger.
Gerald, it don't take a baseball person to sit down and watch him hit in the cleanup spot and the 5-hole and to know that that's one of the guys they're talking about. Like that, they thought, what? It's like the VAR show hitting cleanup. Why was I the only one raising my hand going, how is this going to work? Like, all of a sudden, like that, I think, is where they're at as an organization. Listen to John talk today and the conversation he had with Shohei. That is what the serious conversations now are taking place, and hopefully again.
Yep.
That this is what, to Jeff's point, he's hitting 7th or 8th and not 4th or 5th. Because if he's hitting 4th or 5th, smell that. It's 4th place.
Jimmy from Hinton, Alberta.
Okay, so the first baseball game I ever watched was in 1993. And Joe Carter hit a home run to win the World Series.
Oh, man.
I literally haven't missed a Jays game since that day, whether on TV or on the radio. I've spent thousands of dollars since then on Jays merchandise and have even come from Alberta to watch them play on occasion in the Dome. I'm trying to emphasize the importance of fielding a winning team to attract new fans. This season was the most difficult to watch and faithfully not miss any games. Mr. Barker has been spot on point for years as to what this team needs in order to compete. I hope someone listens to him this year. You both put on a great show that I never miss either, so thank you for that. Now for a question. Springer's contract is so massive, and he is not providing appropriate value, and that money would be better spent on one of the many available bats this offseason. Is his contract movable? And if so, how many of these young prospects would it take for a team to take most, if not all, of Springer's money off the books? Again, thank you for an insightful season of coverage for our Blue Jays, and look forward to seeing and hearing from you both next season.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy. I always tell people, I thought Vernon Wells' contract was the most untradeable contract I'd ever seen in my life, and he ended up getting traded.
Yeah.
I think we're about a year away from realistically saying, okay, if we give you this guy and we give you this, how much of Springer's contract will you take? I'm also going to say this, and I think I keep saying this, but I think we're on the same page here. If they get 2 other thumpers in here and Georgie's hitting 6th or 7th and playing right field, I'm fine.
Yeah. Jeff, I don't think they can't use the word if. You can, as an organization, take a step back and go, man, I can't wait to put George Springer in a leadoff spot next year with a healthy Bo Bichette hitting 2nd. Like, you just can't. You can't sell that anymore.
But the point is, that's not the caller's point.
I know, but defensively, he's fine. Like, I just wonder, to get rid of it, you would have to have a prospect that another team just has to have.
Yeah.
Who is that?
I mean, I don't know.
They don't have one. Not healthy.
This is this is one of the real untold stories. One of the things we didn't talk about we talked about it in the second half, but I'm surprised other people didn't talk about it, is this was a great opportunity for people around baseball to see Orelvis Martinez, to see what that power was all about. What is this guy all about? Can he?
That's not the organization's fault, though.
No, I'm not blaming the organization, but I'm saying that it's a fact. If Orelvis Martinez comes up here and looks at all like he can play second base.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
That is, in 2024, one of the really bad things to happen to this team was Orelvis Martinez being suspended for PED use.
Yep.
Because now nobody knows what he is.
Nope.
Nobody knows what he is. Mm-mm. Are you trusting what your eyes are telling you? Are you trusting what the analytics are telling you? That, look at all these at-bats these guys have had since the trade deadline. Orelvis could be here and be in the lineup every day. And who knows? Maybe we would have found our second baseman, or maybe other teams would have looked at Orelvis Martinez and said, man, that guy, that's the guy we were talking about.
And we'll take George off your hands.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah, that's again, tremendous calls.
Yep.
And just the love that people have for the Blue Jays. Hopefully, again, for everybody's sake that cares about the Jays and can't wait to come from Alberta and buy all the gear and be happy to watch Vladdy, Gerald, and you know,
here's
tremendous stuff. So hopefully they do it for you guys, and you can come and watch a winner.
Yeah.
And from the gate, I know for a fact I'm pretty in tune with the coaching staff. There is so much urgency when it comes to that part of it that it's just, again, the last part of it is get talent here.
Yep.
And see how everything else falls in place. And then if it doesn't, then you know the writing's on the wall and you can do what you want to with it and, you know, sort of blow it up and start over the way you want it to start over with.
There you go. So that's where we are on this September 27th, 2024. We have not solved anything as far as the Blue Jays are concerned, but we have solved the mystery of the final baseball from that final game in Montreal. 20 years later.
Yeah.
20 years later.
Leave it to this show to get to the bottom.
20 years later, we've gotten to the bottom of where that last ball from that pop-up in Montreal is. And maybe we can get something going here and get the ball to the Bronfman family, and they can, you know, figure out where. I mean, it's a part of Canadian sports history. It's a part of Montreal sports history. It's certainly a part of baseball history in this country. So who knows? Maybe we started something good here. So that's it today for us. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk following tonight's game. We'll have an hour-long Blue Jays talk. Speaking of the Expos, Dennis Martinez is on the MLB network right now. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk on Sunday for an hour following the game on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. We will be back here from 4 to 6 p.m. on Monday on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. And then Tuesday, we shift to 3 to 4 Eastern on Sportsnet 360 and Sportsnet 590 The Fan. And, of course, if there's any breaking news with the Blue Jays, we'll be all over it. And we will be on from 3 to 4 Eastern, Monday to Friday, until the end of the postseason. And who knows, maybe we'll be celebrating the Detroit Tigers beating the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Crazy. Don't get
in the
crazy.
World Series.
Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah, I can.
You can't imagine?
Oh, I've
no, I can't.
I'm so down with the Dodgers not winning.
They went from trading Scooble to pitching his arm off.
So down.
Like you have 400 innings in the playoffs.
I would love to see the Dodgers
in the first round. Oh,
Shohei 0 for 14.
How about it?
4 strikes.
50-50 what?
That's it for us. Have a great weekend. We'll chat Monday.